Welcome to Tanakh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with episode number 3 with Rabbi Stuart Federow from Houston, Texas. TNT Exposed. Rabbi, shalom, shalom. It is
Shalom, shalom.
a great pleasure to be able to be sitting here again with you tonight.
It's pleasure's all mine.
I think we definitely share in that pleasure for sure. Wow. And see, I just remembered I've got to turn on the phone lines. So that the work just never ends. It's just how it works, So
Yes, there's always something to do.
yes. So how was your week, sir?
Thank God, just plugging away, doing what I do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Now, all you viewers out there who are fans of Rabbi Federow, and he didn't ask me.
Much appreciated.
Yes. I need you guys to, he is going in for back surgery in a few weeks. And so please, if you don't mind, throw
Keep me in your prayers.
Yep, keep him in your prayers. And give me 1 second while I log into the Ring Central. I knew I was forgetting something. So always something in there, Rabbi. Yeah, it's been last few weeks. It's actually been really, really good. The topics we've covered have been really nice and gloomy. I'm just kidding. But definitely topics of interest for sure. One thing you could do that we can get kicked off on, and this will buy me a few minutes to take care of this too. Let's discuss. I saw it. Where did I see that on Facebook? I think I did actually. Okay. Ezekiel 43. Does that sound right?
Okay, wait a minute. By the way, I'm using your 43 what?
Don't know. Hang on 1 second. I'll tell you.
Okay.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, 855-952-4253 will be working. Give me about 3 minutes, okay? And then you guys can call in. Meanwhile, I'll watch. If you have questions, put them on the YouTube channel in the chat box, if you don't mind. Okay. It was actually something somebody posted on my page. So let me just go there.
Ezekiel 43 what?
I'm fixing to find out.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. It just says Ezekiel 43. Who is the prince mentioned in Ezekiel 43? I know it's not Jesus. Who is it? And then Emmanuel Angelov, pardon me if I mispronounce that, obviously in a good response says it's Messiah ben David, the real Messiah. So, but we'd like to have further clarification, if you don't mind, if you would touch base on that. While you're doing that, I'm going to get the phone lines open, and then we'll...
Okay, wait a minute.
Yes. I don't see a specific verse.
No, I'm still looking for it too.
Okay, Isaiah 43.
And it starts out at least in...
oh, you know what? I can find it, though. The Prince of Persia, right? Isn't that what it is? P-R-I-N-C-E.
Well, but in 43 it says the vision I saw. So that sounds like it's a vision.
Okay. Well, okay, I see it here. Oh, I forgot there's too many references that I need to put in here. Ezekiel. Okay, very good.
Okay, this is the second temple.
Oh, that's in Daniel, Prince of Persia.
No. Ezekiel is talking about the third temple, I believe here. But he said to me, this will be the regulations for sacrificing burnt offerings and splashing blood against the altar when it is built. You are to give, let's see, second day you offer this, 7 days you do this. Then it goes to Ezekiel 44. I think this is a vision of the third temple. Priesthood restored in 44.
I'm going to pull that up on my screen here too. Let me turn the mic up.
I'm not sure what he means by what king.
Right.
God is supposed to be the king of all
it says
humanity.
the prince.
I don't necessarily think it's...
I think it says who is the prince mentioned in his... And it could be that they're 43. They might have been a typo. It might have been, maybe they meant 45. I'm not really sure. Prince. Let me refine that search real fast and see if it'll.
What are you using, by the way? What do you use for search?
I always use Google because it beats any.
Really?
It beats any software, any Bible software. Because it's with the softwares you have to be very precise, but near searches are provided by Google. You can just get close and it'll give you the options. You can literally type in, king with a capital K or something, and it won't find anything if it's a lowercase spelling. So, but on the Google, it'll usually find pretty much anything. Okay, is a prince in Ezekiel. Let's see what happens here. Okay, there's 44 that's actually mentioned there, huh? Okay, so 44:3 commentaries. There's one in 45 also. Yes.
44:3.
So
Only the prince may sit in it to
there you
eat
go.
bread before the Lord. He shall enter by way of the vestibule of the gate and shall go out by the same way. It sounds like it's talking about the human king, the king of flesh and blood at the time of the third temple. Because remember, the Messiah is supposed to reestablish the Davidic dynasty.
Okay. So it is basically the Messiah ben David.
I'm operating a little blind here because I'm not exactly sure exactly what he's referring to, but that's what it's first look. That he brought me back to the outer gate of the sanctuary, which faces east, and it was shut. And he said to me, "This gate shall remain shut; it shall not be open, and no one shall enter by it. For the eternal, the God of Israel, has entered by it. Therefore, it shall remain shut. Only the prince may sit in it to eat bread before the Lord. He shall enter by way of the vestibule of the gate, and shall go out by the same way." Okay, and it's such an innocuous reference. It's one statement about the prince, and then it goes on to talk about the north gate. And it continues with the vision. I don't see another reference to a prince, by the way.
All right, very good. Okay, another question for you, kind of off topic in general. What does it mean in like the Psalms where it says Selah, Selah, Selah? What is that?
Okay, it's an interesting question because Selah, scholars believe, is a statement made to the chief choir master, telling them how to sing or how to play the psalm. The way we use it, however, I don't know how long, probably the past 1,000 years or more, is it is used as if it were the same thing as Amen or Amen. But the truth is that Selah is probably like a note to the choir master telling them how to sing something.
It's kind of like the guy up at the podium with the two sticks, showing them, kind of emphasizing their rhythm and emphasizing, their impact and things like that, I guess. Okay, carrying on. Next question. Why the New Testament speaks... It seems to influence the Samaritan woman, the whole thing, the whole Samaritan's idea seems to be so enveloped. What's the history of the Samaritans, and are they, according to Tanakh, are they like good people? Are they bad people? Who were they? What's the origin?
Not good people.
Thank you. That's what we need to go. Let's discuss here in general.
The origins of the Samaritans are somewhat vague. Some people say this was a group of people who were left in the Promised Land at the exile. I'm not clear that that's true. Scholars can go argue about that anytime they want, but what we do know about the Samaritans is that they competed politically and religiously with the Jews over power in the Promised Land 2,000 years ago. So, for example, you know how when you're outside the land of Israel, we add one day to how long a holiday is supposed to be. So Passover is coming up. It's 8 days out of the land and 7 days as commanded in the Bible in the land.
Just for the galut, right?
Right, but the reason for that, blame it on the Samaritans. It's interesting to me that the New Testament never uses the term Good Samaritan. It talks about the Samaritan this, Samaritan woman, whatever. But the Samaritan is known as the Good Samaritan. Why is the Samaritan known as the Good Samaritan? Because it's to contrast that Samaritan with all the other Samaritans. So, as I said, the Samaritan community were competing with the Jews politically and religiously to obtain greater power in the Promised Land. So, according to the Bible, a person sees, for example, the new moon. They go to the temple, they say, "I have seen the new moon," and the priest validates it, lights the fire, a bonfire, which then gets seen in the distance. Another bonfire is lit, then another bonfire, a person sees it and lights his bonfire, and that's how the word goes out that the Chag
Right.
that the holiday is started. So the Samaritans, in order to throw the Jews off, would light a bonfire on the wrong day.
Oh, to try to throw off. Okay.
Yes. In other words, look,
Oh, right.
William, if you control the calendar, you control the people.
Mm-hmm.
So the Samaritans would do basically anything they could, because again, they were competing with the Jews. So, for example, there's a whole controversy, which, by the way, you still see among some Christians today.
Just put that anywhere.
Yeah, sorry. Clumsy. Me. Okay. Let me give you an example. If you take a look in Leviticus 23, let's see if I can do this real quick.
I'll try to put that. I'll put
Take
that
a
up
look
on
in
the screen
Leviticus
also.
23.
Okay, give me 1 second. Desktop presenter.
Okay.
All right,
It's going to give you a list of the Torah holidays. Okay?
Okay.
And if you take a look, the first one, of course, it's going to discuss is going to be the Sabbath. Okay?
Right.
That's Leviticus 23, beginning with verse 3.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Immediately after that, it's going to go to Passover. Okay?
Okay.
Verse 4, these are the appointed feasts of the Lord, the holy convocations, which you shall proclaim at the time appointed for them, in the first month, on the 14th day of the month, in the evening. By the way, William,
Yes.
I'm always fascinated by this. It says in the first month, on the 14th day of the month, in the evening. Well, if it's the 14th day...
It's the 15th.
Exactly. So they'll say, oh, well, the Passover was a totally different day than the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And the Feast of Unleavened Bread began later. No, it didn't. Passover is as the 14th becomes the 15th on the 14th day as it becomes evening. So that night starts the 15th, just like Saturday is our Sabbath, but it starts Friday night in the evening. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. And on the 15th day of the same month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So the 15th day is also what's starting at the same time as the sacrifice of the Passover. So, all right. But if you go further down, okay, let me find the verse. Let's see. Okay, this is verse 15. And you shall count from the day after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheave of the wave offering, 7 full weeks, you count 50 days after the 7th Sabbath. Okay?
Okay.
The Samaritans were one of the groups of people, I believe, that claimed that what this means is that it's the Sabbath within Passover. Even though the first day is a Sabbath, it's not necessarily the 7th day of that week. Okay?
Yep.
So they will claim that the day after Saturday, of course, is Sunday. Therefore, Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, has to always, every year, be on a Sunday. You follow that?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I've never followed this. It seems to overlap, and to me it's very confusing.
Well, it's confusing because they're not understanding what the word Sabbath means. Day
Okay.
of rest, the first day of the Passover is a day of rest. It is a Sabbath.
Okay.
It's not the Sabbath like 7th day of the week of that week.
It's just a commanded rest day.
Yes, let's
Okay,
pretend
that makes sense.
let's pretend that the first night of Passover, so the 14th is a Wednesday, the night of the 14th begins the 15th day, which is actually Wednesday night, Thursday.
Which would be
Okay.
a rest day.
Which would be a day of rest. So Wednesday night, Thursday becomes the day after the Sabbath in Passover, because the first day was a Sabbath, a day of rest.
Okay.
Okay. Samaritans were one of the group of people, I believe, if I remember my history correctly, that said, oh, no. In a case like that, the Sabbath it's talking about is the Saturday, where Wednesday night, Thursday is the first day. Thursday night, Friday is the second day, but Friday night, Saturday is the Sabbath this biblical verse is talking about. They would
Okay.
start counting the 7 weeks of Shavuot on a Saturday, on a Friday night Saturday, not on the second day of Passover, whenever it would land in the week.
Okay. Got it.
Okay?
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
So one of the other confusions, again, if you control the calendar, you control the Jewish community. So the Samaritans were trying to say that the Sabbath referred to in Leviticus 23 verse 15 is the Saturday of the week in which Passover is held, not the second day after the first day being a Sabbath to God because it's a day of rest. And they would try to tell everybody, no, you're celebrating Shavuot incorrectly. You're celebrating the Feast of Weeks incorrectly. There are some Christian groups that, like the Samaritans, are claiming the same thing even today.
Interesting. Well, that definitely spins off on another question. Regarding the calendar.
Because, of course, you know that they know more than the Jews have for 4,000 years.
Okay. Regarding the calendar. One thing I noticed throughout my time spent with the Messianic group, they were very much, most Messianics that I know are, when I say most, I literally mean all the ones that I have met and interacted with, whether it be in the real world or on Facebook, 98%, and I'm being generous here, 98% of them were very anti-oral law, very anti-rabbinical, if you want to call it that. Now, they're regarding the calendar, regarding the sighting of the moon specifically, they have taken upon themselves to say, you know what, the Torah says sight the moon, so that's what we're doing. And so why is it, what's the proper way of going? I mean, they will tell you we're not doing this because we're anti-rabbinical, but really the seed of it is that's pretty much the drive. It has a lot to do with the fact that that's what the preset calendar, the Hillel calendar, whatever. So is it right for them to, if they were Jewish, would it be right to let themselves sight the moon or follow the preset calendar for the holy days?
If they want to be Jewish, they have to follow the Jewish calendar.
Perfect. Okay.
And they have to follow it the way the Jews follow it.
Right.
They can look, William. They can come up with anything they want. They can. No, seriously.
Yeah.
Free country, free world.
Yeah.
Okay. Even the old line. I can't remember who it's by. Can't think of his name. You've not converted a man just because you've silenced him.
Right.
So
right.
Even in a dictatorship, their religion and what they feel inside is up to them. But if they want to be Jewish, if they want to follow Judaism, then they have to follow Rabbinic Judaism because there is no other kind.
Right, right.
Okay, so they would have to follow the rabbinically set calendar to be truthfully a Jew, to be true to Judaism.
Right.
Because that's what Judaism is.
Right. One thing I find that's really interesting is the thing that I had issues with even while I was Messianic. I was probably one of the 2% that was very much, I was totally cool with the oral law. And it wasn't because I was trying to be different. It was literally because, I did see scripture proof showing that it's something that God gave the authority to them. Even when it comes down to just the small laws, he says, go to them or whatever judgment they tell you, do it,
Right. But William, let's bar all of that.
Okay.
Let's just completely remove any of that history. Okay, or even that logic. All right, there are so many verses within the context of the Tanakh, in the context of the Torah, which demand interpretation.
Right.
For example, the obvious: you will write them on the doorposts of your house.
Right.
What's them?
Right.
What does the word them refer to?
Right.
The group that denies the oral tradition.
Oh yeah, the Karaites.
Karaites.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, they can claim all they want to that. Oh well, that's just a symbolic. It's not. You're not really supposed to write it on the doorpost. That's just symbolic that you're supposed to keep it around all the time in your head or something like that. They can do that all they want to.
Right.
But to be Judaism, to be Jewish, you have to follow the Jewish, which means rabbinic interpretation of that, so that when you try to put into reality a biblical verse, write them on the doorposts of your house, it requires some form of interpretation. You have got to, you can't, you can, of course, you can always make up what you want, but it won't be in consonance with Judaism.
Sure.
It'd be Williamism. Okay. But to be Judaism, you have to follow the Jewish interpretation. I would argue that in terms of an oral tradition, every religion has its oral tradition, because every religion's texts, whether you're talking about the Tanakh, the Torah, the Tanakh, whether you're talking about the Christian's New Testament, whether you're talking about the Vedas of Hinduism, whether you're talking about the Quran, each religion's texts are going to say something that demand interpretation.
Sure.
And here's the example I give, okay? When you were a Messi, how did you do, or how did the minister, how did they do baptism?
Are you asking me? They would go down to a place in Austin where the water was running, where there was no stagnant water. Said it had to be a certain size, and then they would one at a time, go down and
No, but what would they do there? They would go down into the water and what?
They would go down. The minister would stand next to them, almost like it was in church, actually, and it would actually like grab them and dunk them under.
When they dunked them under, how did they dunk them under? Falling backwards, falling forwards, doesn't matter.
It didn't matter. They actually just went straight down.
Okay, but the assumption is made that it's fully immersed.
Right.
Why? The New Testament, when it describes the baptism of Jesus, says nothing about the depth of the water.
Right.
All it says is that Jesus came up out of the water.
Right.
Well, I could be in a bathtub 2 inches deep. No, seriously, I could be in a bathtub 2 inches deep and I'm coming up out of the water.
Yeah, true.
Okay, and they'll say, well, you have to understand that the Greek word for baptism is like a ladle. Okay, the Baptist minister on my radio show explicitly says this. Yes.
Oh, wow.
He says it's like a ladle. You are submerging the ladle.
Oh, wow.
No, you're not. You're submerging the cup part of the ladle. The handle never goes under the water.
Right.
Because you're holding on to it.
Yeah.
So it's not the whole ladle that goes under.
So it's still even in their interpretation, it still requires explanation.
Exactly. Yeah. Everybody's religious text has to have some interpretation, because not every verse is explained completely. And a lot of Christian churches will say, oh no, they get dipped backwards, okay, and they come forward like you're in a tomb, like in a coffin, and then you get up like you're being reborn, okay, or resurrected. Well, that's not in the New Testament.
Right.
Their interpretation of how to do it is their old tradition, is their Talmud.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's one thing I used to tell everybody all the time too. Is in fact, actually, I'll use a phrase that my friend Lon Cherry Holmes had termed. Oh, you know Lon. He basically said, for you to he said for you to dispose of the oral law, the Talmud, you literally have to create your own new one.
Exactly.
And
you would have to.
And my example follows that suit. Was if anybody has ever picked up a Strong's Concordance, then they have done just that. They have tossed away the oral law and taken up a new one called the Strong's Concordance. The same exact thing. You're trusting someone else's translation, interpretation of text.
William, if you want to do something really interesting, go take a look at the last 5 editions of the Strong's Concordance. Maybe the last 10, depends on how often they come out.
Right.
And in each one, look up the word Alma. Of course,
really? They've changed that?
Yes. Isaiah 7:14,
of
course, we all know this, uses the word Alma. And what they did in every single citation in Strong's is they said, Alma, young woman, young woman, young woman, young woman, young woman, young woman, virgin, young woman, young woman,
right.
young woman. Okay, and the only place where they said in the concordance where Alma meant virgin was Isaiah 53.
Right.
If you take a look at...
Oh, you mean Isaiah 7, you mean? Isaiah 7.
Yes, exactly.
Right, got it.
Well, no. You look up the word Alma,
right,
and it will cite every usage of it.
Right. But is in Isaiah 7:14, it actually tells you virgin instead of...
Right, but
instead
everywhere
of young
else,
woman, right?
Strong's claims that it means young woman.
Right.
So why is it young woman everywhere else, except here, all of a sudden, it's virgin?
It's kind of like Messiah, right? Or Mashiach.
Exactly.
Same
they're
exact
trying to
thing.
make it look like, exactly.
Right.
So if you take a look at different editions, I forgot what year it started, but they took one more place, I think in Genesis, and claimed that there too it means virgin, to allow them to say, well, 99% of the time it doesn't, but 0.5% is Genesis and 0.5% is Isaiah 7.
Right. And the only problem is that there's already a term for virgin.
Well, of course.
And they didn't not use it there.
No, and exactly. But my point is that Strong's, when they heard the complaint that they never used Alma to mean virgin in any other place except Isaiah 53, why only that place? They simply picked another place where Alma was used, and then, okay, from now on, it means virgin there too. So they're playing fast and loose with interpretations.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, so when you were talking about the mezuzah on the doorpost, you should write them on the doorpost. One thing that kind of caught my attention, and you can correct me on this, when it talks about you should bind them as a sign upon your hand, does it say hand in the Hebrew or hands plural?
Wait, give me.
I think it says hand singular.
I think it says hand singular too, but
right. I
always have to be careful with this kind of thing. So give me a second. I have a slow computer, so just bear with me. Can't remember if there's a yud there or not. Yud on the yod. Okay, so 6. Let's see.
What verse is that? That was why is this thing all bent up?
Deuteronomy 6:8. 6:8.
There we go.
Shartim l'ot al yadcha. No, it's singular.
That's what I thought. Now, see, that's the thing. If it was meant to be taken metaphorically, my first thought, using American concept in our language, is that everything that you put your hands to the plow. It seems like most of the time, and there's probably exceptions, that if it was supposed to be strictly metaphorically, it'd say you should bind these as bind them as a signs upon your hands. I mean, both of everything that you do. But I mean, that's not really a good argument, but it is a thought.
It's an interesting thought, but again, every single verse can be interpreted in any way by anybody, anytime, and nobody else can say they're wrong.
Right.
You can only say I disagree with your interpretation. By the way, I thought of a great one. Okay. William, I don't know if you know this, but did you know that the fluorescent light bulb is actually prophesied in the Hebrew Scriptures? No,
tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Well, it's clear to me that when God said, "Let there be light," He's clearly prophesying to the people that the fluorescent bulb is going to be invented.
That's too funny.
Who can tell me why that interpretation is wrong? You can't. You can say you disagree with me,
or just a light bulb in general.
Yeah, or light bulb in general.
That's funny.
But I can interpret any verse I want to. It may sound stupid. You may disagree with me.
Right.
But you cannot. There's no proof that my interpretation is wrong unless there is another verse in the Tanakh
to confirm it, right?
Which clearly and explicitly, without any interpretation, literally means something that contradicts my interpretation.
Got it. Yep, that makes sense. One person asked me a question. By the way, people watching out there, if you want to input your question, actually, I've got one now. Jacob Daniel. Jacob Daniel is the one who actually who brought forth on YouTube the last question. By the way,
which one was that?
That was. Let me go back to the page. That shows you how long my memory is.
Oh, believe me, it's worse than mine.
That was. Here we go. Let's see. Well, where'd it go? Well, actually, he'll have to type it on there. But let's move on to the next question. I'll come back to it. My point was, if you guys want to have specific questions, call in. The lines are open, volume's up, or you can put them on YouTube. If you're watching the YouTube video and you don't know, at the bottom right, somewhere on the right side of your screen, there's a chat window. and you'll see some people chatting there. You can actually type in there if you've got a question. Send us your question. Jacob Daniel says, how does Acts 15:10 square with Paul's accusation that Peter was wrong for upholding the law? Oh, thank you, Jacob. He said the Samaritan. That's right. The Samaritan question.
Right. And by the way, I checked while we were talking. It never says the Good Samaritan. It just says the Samaritan.
Oh, interesting.
The reason why it was known as the Good Samaritan, as I said before, is because in contrast to all the other Samaritans who weren't so good.
Yeah, right. Very good.
Okay.
Very good. Okay.
Acts 15:10.
Acts 15:10. I know Acts 15:1 is where it's talking about the argument they had with the council about circumcision, which we discussed last episode 1, I think. Maybe it's episode 2. So the question is, again, how does 15:10 square with Paul's accusation that Peter was wrong for upholding the law? Okay, let me go there. I'm kind of familiar with that too. Let me see.
Okay, first of all, the thing about Acts, I think it's 14, 15, 16, 15, 16, 17, something like that, is like a trial of Peter. I'm sorry, start over.
Paul.
A trial of Paul,
Yeah.
as opposed to Peter and, what's his name? Peter and James. Okay, Peter and James wanted to uphold the law. They did not, they saw Christianity as a continuity of Judaism. Whereas Paul was breaking with that and saying basically, don't follow the law. And by the way, what law was he talking about? He was talking about Judaism's laws, which up till that time would have been probably the middle Mishnaic period, and certainly the laws of the Tanakh, the Torah, and the Tanakh. So,
Okay.
Peter, why do I keep saying that? So Paul gets pulled back to Jerusalem, and basically they start arguing about, with Paul about, why are you ignoring the law? Why are you bypassing the law? And for the moment, okay, I almost said Peter again, Paul acquiesces. In other words, he lost the battle, but he wins the war.
Right.
Okay, and the answer, if I understand this question correctly, is Acts 15:10 doesn't square. Why do you make trial of God by putting a yoke upon the neck of the disciples, which neither our fathers nor we have been able to bear? Which first makes it sound like God gives the Jews laws they cannot keep.
Right.
Okay, which more squares with Paul's idea of the law as being unbearable, can't follow it. The only purpose of the law is to show you cannot keep it, so you need Jesus to die for your sin that you commit by your inability to keep the law. By the way, that's a very distorted view of God. God brings me into the world knowing I'm incapable of keeping a law, and then gives me a law knowing I can't keep it so that I will be condemned. That's not Judaism's idea of law, and that's a God of cruelty who would intentionally bring you into existence and then condemn you to an eternity of hell for not keeping the law, at least from the Christian perspective.
Right. I will say a couple comments on this particular verse too. It actually goes a little bit further in verse 29.
I haven't figured out how you're using your Google, because all I can get is one verse at a time.
Okay, like for example, I was looking for verse 29, but I didn't know it was there, but I knew one of the phrases in it, and it took me right there. So same chapter, verse 29, but still on 10 real fast, just to answer the question posed. How does it jive with everything? 29.
Okay, go ahead.
29 is definitely coupled with this, because it kind of repeats it, but it actually puts, it adds some context to it. Right here it just says, now therefore why tempt God and put a yoke upon the neck of the disciples, which neither the fathers were able to bear. But if you notice just before that in verse 9, he says, and put no difference between us, the Jews, and the Gentiles, them, purifying their hearts by faith, meaning that the Jews' hearts are, purified by their faith between God too. I know there's disagreements on that, but now look at verse 29, and verse 29 says, actually 28, 29, for it seemed good to the Holy Ghost and to us to lay upon you no greater burden than these necessary things. Okay, what are the necessary things? That you abstain from meats offered to idols, from the blood, from things strangled, and from fornication. Notice 3 of those 4 things are dietary laws. So why is it that if Paul is all totally anti-law, why is he telling them here that they do need to not do these things? These are violations of the dietary laws, and these three things plus fornication.
Again, I think that Paul is a very devious character.
True.
There are times where he says things he's preaching at one synagogue supposedly, and he starts getting into trouble. So he says something out loud that will make everybody fight each other so he can escape.
Right.
Okay, that's kind of a devious thing to be doing. But I remember that he's on trial here, and he sees that he's going to lose the battle, even though he later wins the war. So my impression of what he does in Acts 15, 16, 17, or 14, 15, whatever it is, what's the trial where he's pulled back to Jerusalem to be on trial, is he makes it seem like he's giving in.
Right, right.
So when he says, here are some laws you have to keep, it's like to pacify the Peter and James community so that he can go on and, continue his, basically his other preaching against the law.
Oh, and here's something else too I was thinking of.
That's how I see it.
Just remembered something.
Okay.
I don't know for sure, but my memory, for some reason, I was flashing back, and that wasn't actually Paul speaking in verse 9. That was him speaking in verse 25. So I guess Paul offering his clarification is, yeah, just don't do these four things. Okay, now, continuing on.
Go ahead.
Continuing on, and Jacob has mentioned Galatians 2:7, which basically states...
Galatians
it says 2:7.
7.
But contrariwise, when they saw that the gospel of uncircumcision, right?
Was committed unto me as the gospel of circumcision was to Peter. Okay, so two gospels, interestingly enough.
Right, and here's the thing too. If Galatians is when I was a Messianic, that was what everybody called the letter that should have never been written, because that's the one thing that really destroys Paul's teachings. If a person is saying Paul taught Torah, which
right.
I personally, even today, I still believe that he did. I just think there was other places where he didn't, which makes him double-tongued. Now, I will say this to conclude. If you look at Galatians 5:8, since we're Jacob, since you're mentioning this up, let me go back here to... There it is. Okay, Galatians 5:8. I think it's 5:8 or 5:4. Let's see. Nope, hold on. 5, where's it at?
5:4, Christ has become of no effect unto you. Whoever of you are justified by the law.
Yeah, so whoever's justified by the law. Now, this is a good example where he talked double tongue. Well, because in Romans 2:13 he says it's your works that actually do justify you, and here he's saying it's not.
Well, let's understand what Galatians is all about.
Okay.
Paul is writing to the Christians of Galatia, and writing to the people of Galatia. Okay. What's the issue in Galatia? The issue is, if a person wants to become a Christian, do they have to become a Jew first if Christianity is a sect or developed from Judaism? Do they have to first become a Jew by circumcision?
That was Acts 15 also, by the way.
Right. Okay. And then once they are a Jew, because they've converted to Judaism through the act of circumcision, then they go on to Christianity. Mm-hmm. Paul's writing to the people, the Christians of Galatia, telling them, don't bother with this circumcision stuff. Go straight to Christianity. Because once you accept circumcision, which is his way of saying once you become a Jew, then you have to keep the law, and the whole purpose of Jesus is to save you from the law, because the law is a horrible thing.
Right.
Okay. So here he is saying that if you receive circumcision, which is to say you become a Jew, then you have to keep the law. But he doesn't want you to keep the law. So he's telling people in Galatia, the Christians of Galatia, don't become a Jew, don't get circumcised, because then you have to keep the law, and the whole purpose of Jesus, so you don't have to keep the law.
Right.
So, all right. So here, when he says, for in Jesus Christ neither circumcision availeth anything nor uncircumcision, but faith, he's saying, don't worry about Jewish law. Only have the faith in Jesus, and that's what you're supposed to be doing. That's the good thing. That's the positive act.
Okay, I've got a list pulled up right now. Just to give you an example. Let me scoot over here with this other mic here. There's like 50 or so. Where's it at? 51, I think. Just these are all different reference points in the New Testament.
For what? Where
Paul specifically calls out the teachings of Torah as necessary. In 51 different locations. Now, there's more than that, but that's all I had time to actually develop. That started.
By the way, send me a copy of that. I'd like to see it.
Okay, cool. And I'll just give you a few examples: Romans 6:1-2, Romans 3:31, Romans 8:7-8.
I'm not going to be able to find it.
No, I'm just kind of for the viewer's sake. I mean, they got Romans, they're in Acts, they're in Thessalonians, Corinthians, 1st and 2nd Timothy, Ephesians. There's even Galatians 3:12 was actually quoting Leviticus, or quoting from Ezekiel 20 verse 11. So and again, they're literally all over the place. And Jesus also was very much teaching Torah. I mean, there's another 50 or so that's strictly from the Gospels, I think, where Jesus himself is actually telling people, be obedient to the law. It is about the law.
But you have to remember that the religion of Jesus, the religion
I totally agree.
is called Judaism, but the religion about Jesus is called Christianity.
Yes, very true. Very true.
Right.
Wow. Okay, so you know what?
This kind of goes back to something we were talking about last week, and that is the verse immediately before the one you cited, which is Galatians 3:11. But that no man is justified by the law in the sight of God. It is evident, for the just shall live by faith. Again, to be justified, every definition, every minister I've talked to, justified means to be made right with God so that you can go to heaven.
Right.
So,
but here's the messianic spin on that verse, is that it's not by faith, but faithfulness. And what is faithfulness? Faithfulness has to do with a set of boundaries. So if the righteous are justified by faith or faithfulness, it's a completely different message. Faith is something that is taught that you just think it, you feel it, you get warm fuzzies. Yeah, but faithfulness is actions and obedience.
But William, what would they say faithful to?
That's the whole point, to the law. That would be the messianic spin.
Okay, that's an interesting spin.
Yeah. It's a very active one. I won't say valid. I'll say it's a very active spin for sure, which defines a lot of.
William, what then do they do with the statements about the purpose of the law is to condemn you? The law is a curse. It only comes to curse you.
They actually, believe it or not, there's really good explanations for all of those. Let's go to one real fast.
Everything can be justified and rationalized.
Right. If you want to pull one up, do you know one right offhand? I know what you're talking about. For example,
it's Galatians also. Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us.
That's a very easy one to explain.
By the way, that's the weirdest. William, I'm not joking. Sometimes I feel that when Paul was writing, he was on something.
I was thinking he was on peyote or something.
There was actually, it wasn't peyote.
Right.
It was a fungus that grew in the Mideast that was a hallucinogen. But the point is that a curse is a statement made. I curse you. Okay? So if a person can become a curse, can it become an exclamation? What does it mean that Jesus became a curse?
He became the curse of the law. The curse of the law. What is the curse? The curse of the law, not the blessings of the law. What is the curse of the law? The curse of the law, in using this messianic viewpoint, which is very important to discuss, the curse of the law is death. Now, it doesn't say that there is only curses with the law. There's blessings with the law too. That's how it's taught. The curse of the law is death. And so their teaching is that Jesus became that curse. He died. That death.
No. But how do you become a curse? Can you become an exclamation?
No, but that's not taking it in the proper context, though.
Can you become a question?
Right.
I became a question. What is that? The way these things are worded are so strange to me. I guess it must be the veil over my mind. Okay, but it is just.
What is that noise?
To my ears, he sounds like he's on something.
Right.
How does a person become a curse? A person can be cursed.
Right.
a person can curse another,
right.
but you can't be a curse.
Now, a Messianic watching this is saying to themselves right now, we're really nitpicking.
No, we're not nitpicking. That's how he speaks.
No, if I was Messianic, I honestly, I probably would be saying that, because I'm thinking the point of that verse in the Messianic mind is, again, it's a terminology. You're talking about translation after translation after translation into an English language we can wrap our heads around. Not everything's going to be 100% accurate no matter what. So if they're going to say, well, you're just nitpicking on that one word to become a curse rather than took the curse or something like that. Now, I know they've got the Greek to go with, but the whole idea of that whole entire context and their justification is that he became the curse for us. He took that curse.
But they're using the word in the same definition.
Yeah.
Okay. To me, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't become a curse. Can I become an exclamation? Yeah. Can I become a question?
Cursed is every man who hung on a tree.
I had a question, and William became a question, so that.
But what is it? Is cursed is every man who is hung from a tree? Is that that's in the Tanakh somewhere or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if that man is cursed, that's the context, though.
Okay, maybe I am nitpicking on the way it's worded then. Okay, guilt discharged. But if a person got the death penalty, then their body was, pardon the expression, strung up as a warning to other people, but it was only allowed to be up for a limited amount of time.
Right.
I think it had to be taken down before sundown.
Right.
Okay, but the body wasn't a curse. The person was cursed for having broken the law.
Totally agree.
Okay, it's his wording, not only with this, but with so many things, is just bizarre to me.
I totally agree. Like you said, it may have been, maybe he, maybe he had a message after he had a glass of wine or something and just wasn't careful with his words.
I ate some bread that had this fungus on
it. 855-952-4253. Please do call in. We're having a blast here. I mean, if y'all don't call in, then me and Rabbi just want to keep on going with this. This is a lot of interesting stuff for sure. So,
wait,
yes.
Let me. I just have to throw this out, William. I understand what you're saying, that every objection the Jews have, a messy Christian is going to come up with a response, just like every objection a Christian has, the Jew is going to come up with a response. I understand that. Okay. But as I said earlier, as I repeat myself, because I'm redundant by saying the same things over and over again more than once or twice, any verse can be taken out of context. Any verse can be interpreted in any way, shape, or form that a person wants to interpret it. But if it contrasts with a clear statement whose literal understanding is understandable, okay, then you have to reject the interpretation of that other verse.
Right.
So if you say he became a curse in our place, it still violates.
Yeah, totally agree. Right.
Exactly.
Right. Totally agree.
So I don't care how he became a curse. He didn't become a curse. He was cursed. He took the curse away. He can't do that.
Right.
Okay. Every man shall be put to death for his own sin. The wickedness of the wicked shall be on the wicked. I mean, it's
right.
It's still unbiblical to hold the Christian theology. So
right.
That's something that no Messianic can get around.
Okay, here's another Messianic problem or argument against Judaism. Jesus offered himself. Therefore, he wasn't a sacrifice. He actually volunteered himself. It wasn't like somebody sacrificed him unwillingly.
Oh, so he committed suicide and the Roman soldiers didn't kill him. No, that's what they're saying.
No, that's right. Yeah, that's right. But that's one of the logics that they have.
If the Roman soldiers did it to him, okay, then otherwise all they've got left is a suicide. That's one thing. Second of all, I forgot what I was going to say. Wait a minute. Should have written it down.
That's okay. That's like me. If I don't write it down, I'll forget.
I do that all the time.
Gotcha.
Right,
no, that's a good point. I never actually thought of that before. That's. I don't mean to be so laughing about it, but that's.
What I was going to say.
Okay.
If they say that Jesus did this voluntarily, then what do they do with the verse in the New Testament where Jesus Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane and says to God, not my will,
but yours. Yeah.
Your will be done.
Right.
It means the will of Jesus is not to be crucified.
Right. Yeah, very true.
The will of Jesus is going against the will of God, which means Jesus wasn't God, because they'd have to have the same will.
And of course, they use the Akedah in a comparison with that, because Isaac was willing, even though it wasn't his plan, he was still willing to submit to his father. So that's how they use that. I mean, see, the whole idea with Isaac, he was what, 35 years old, not like 10, but even then, he was willing to let Abraham bind him and draw the knife back out of submission. So he still volunteered himself, or he was willing to go along with the plan. So that's kind of how they use the whole parallel there.
What you are doing, okay, which is fair, I'm not saying it isn't.
Sure.
Is that you are basing your interpretation of the binding of Isaac, the Akedah, on Midrash, on Jewish interpretation of it.
Right.
But there is nothing in the text itself that says that Isaac was
true.
willing. That's very important.
Very true.
That Isaac was willing.
Yeah.
Okay, the question would be asked, why was he bound?
Yeah.
And the Midrash is that, what if I squirm? What if the last?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And I understand that, and that is, the Jewish way to look at it. But if the Messianics would have to accept as valid the rabbinic interpretation through that Midrash to be able to make the statement that Isaac also was voluntarily putting himself on the altar.
So cherry picking.
See, it's exactly.
Right, got it.
Okay. Either or.
Yep.
And have it both ways.
Yep, true.
How very convenient of them.
Yeah, very true. Okay, comment by our friend Yasha Barar. Hi, Yasha. How are you? It's good to see you tuning in tonight.
Hi.
Comment or question, I'm not sure, there's no explanation. It says, Jesus becoming the curse. Oh, yeah, it's a question. Where does the Christian... I'm thinking she's saying, where does it say that in the Tanakh? Where does it say, cursed is every man that hangs on a tree or something like that? Where's the connection in the Tanakh based on the New Testament reference?
See, this is where...
I'll help you find it.
You're going to have to give me a second. I'm going to have to look for it.
No problem. I'll help you find it too. Let's see.
Okay.
Let me go.
Not this one. Let's use this translation. And cursed is the man. Let's see.
Okay, Deuteronomy 21:23.
I was just about to get there.
Is that the reference you're thinking of?
I believe so. Let me look for it.
Okay, Deuteronomy 21:23. Let me pull that up on the screen for everybody. Deuteronomy 21 and 23.
Say it again. What was it?
21:23. His body shall not remain all night upon the tree, but thou
That's it.
shalt in any wise bury him that day, for he that is hanged is accursed of God.
Right. And give me the citation because you're saying it too quickly.
I apologize. Deuteronomy 21:23.
21.
Oh, I was going to put that up on the screen for everybody, just in case they don't have a Bible handy. Let me get that right there.
Yes. Yeah. If a criminal is put to death and you hang the body on a tree, you must not let it hang there overnight. Bury it the same day, because the dead body of a criminal will bring God's curse on the land. The Lord your God is giving this land to you, so don't make it unclean by leaving the bodies of executed criminals on display. That is a simplistic translation of what's going on there.
Nice.
Okay, why would this be an affront to God?
Okay. What was your question? Why would this be an affront to God? I'm not sure I understand.
What's the big deal about leaving a dead body on the tree overnight?
Well, you just described it. It said about keeping the land clean.
But what does that have to do with the land being clean?
Well, I mean, for the same reason they don't raise pigs in Israel, at least on the holy ground. If a thief is unclean and they killed him for it, then he obviously was not a Torah follower, which makes him an unclean person altogether. And so to post him up there and just leave him planted there, am I onto something or am I missing it?
No, I think you might have. That's an interesting interpretation, and it may be valid.
Okay.
Okay. Devar acher means another word.
Oh, right.
Or
Yeah, right. It is.
another interpretation. So this is my Devar Acher.
Okay, cool.
What does it mean on a very literal understanding that we're made in the image of God?
Honestly, I've pondered that for years. So
Do we really believe God has a big toe?
No, but in fact, now when I was younger, I believed that. I believed that because the whole idea, when God stuck Moses in the cleft of the rock, and it says He didn't let him see his face, and so it really gives us a painted picture, but it lets him see his hinder parts. What does that mean?
Well, that's not. Okay, that's not how I translate that verse.
Good.
It says, Acharai is behind me. It doesn't mean, look at my tushy, look at my behind. Okay.
Got it.
It's behind me. Acharai means, okay, but the point is, we can get to that in a minute.
Right,
okay.
right.
If we're made in the image of God, there's an element in Judaism that does understand that the way we treat the body has something to do with that.
Okay.
Okay. So you don't put dead bodies on display. Judaism doesn't, you're not supposed to have a viewing of the body of a loved one who dies. Oh. It's considered an insult to them because they're not.
Got it.
Sorry, what?
No, that's brilliant. You just tied together a major picture I've always been curious about. Keep going.
Well, I don't know how brilliant that is. I just think that if you respect the human body, here's an analogy that I use, okay? Who owns the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C.?
Lincoln?
No. Who owns the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C.?
I have no idea.
What?
I have no idea.
Yeah, you do.
Do I really?
The people of the United States citizen, because it's a memorial, okay? It's owned by the people.
Okay, got it.
Does that mean that William Hall has the right to go write his name on Lincoln's forehead because it's partly his too?
Right, good point, right?
The answer is no, he doesn't have the right because it harms, what does it harm? Okay, it harms other people's view of the same statue, but it also mars the image of Lincoln himself.
Right.
Well, if I'm made in the image of God, this also ties in with the whole idea of tattooing, by the way.
Right.
But if I am made in the image of God, then there's a kind of element there that you treat the body with respect because it houses the soul which comes from God. The point is that if you leave a dead body up, it's a disrespect to humanity. And thereby becomes a disrespect to God in whose image we are made.
Right.
Okay, so I think what's going on is that God's going to get angry if you disrespect the human body, like leaving up a dead body for display. By the way, I'll ask it this way, William. Not that I would expect you to go, okay, but there was and still is, touring the country where real, honest-to-goodness human bodies are set in positions, like you'll have a dead body bicycling, okay, and people would pay money to go see these displays of real human bodies whose soul has left them. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I've never heard of that before, but I understand.
All right, well,
some sort of weird sick art.
Yeah, but it's not. It's very popular. The guy's making a lot of money off of putting on display soulless bodies.
Interesting. Wow.
And you'll have like a real human body whose skin is removed and you can see the organs, or the skin is removed and you can see the muscle tissue, and they're set in positions of doing real things, like riding a bicycle or sitting at a desk or what have you.
Wow.
Okay.
That's creepy.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
And the reason why is it creepy?
Yeah.
Okay, so doing that, leaving a dead body up, hanging, it's
just a repulsive.
It's the same kind of creepiness.
Yeah, right.
So the reason why it would bring a curse on the people for displaying a dead body is because it's creepy.
Right, got it.
And I think that's what Deuteronomy 21 is really saying. Not that the body is cursed, but the people who leave it up there will be cursed, because it's going to be an insult to God because of the way it's how we treat the body, and we're made in the image of God.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, Rabbi, let's make this our last question.
Oh, you're no fun.
We need like 2 or 3 hours a night. That would be so cool.
Hey,
okay.
I'm ready.
Again, Jacob had mentioned Acts 16:3. Why did Paul have Timothy circumcised if he was against it?
Again, personal opinion. Never claim to be always right about everything I say.
Sure.
Because he's a sleazebag. Because he's trying to make himself look like he's keeping the law.
That's funny.
Okay, because he's going to be, or wherever that occurs, related to Acts 15 or whatever, he's going to be called on the carpet, or he is being called on the carpet, or he was already called on the carpet. So he's trying to appease the Peter James contingent of the early Christian church.
I'll tell you that one of the main incidents that takes place in the New Testament, which really does push Paul. And again, if I was to write down all the verses,
where in Acts was that circumcision?
16:19. No, 16:3. Sorry. Oh no, the circumcision with Timothy would be 16:3.
Right. So therefore, it's in the period of time, it's Acts 15, 16, 17, whatever, where he's on trial.
Right.
So he's going to pretend like he's really keeping the law.
But like we discussed,
he says, don't get circumcised.
But he didn't say don't get circumcised. He said don't be circumcised after the manner of Moses, Acts 15, 1, 2, and 3. And also he was pointing out two points there. One of the points was the argument that you have to be circumcised before faith. And that was one of the problems he had. He was like, no, you don't. You just, if you want to follow God, get circumcised later. That's the point he was making there. But number two was that after the law of Moses was his emphasis. He didn't say don't get circumcised. He says you don't have to be circumcised after the manner of Moses. Otherwise, that after the manner of Moses didn't need to be there.
Left?
What therefore? What do you mean?
What kind of circumcision is there?
Well, very simple.
Than the manner of Moses.
Well, put it this way. Let me ask you a question. According to halakha, if a man who was not circumcised decides to convert to Judaism, can he just go to a doctor and get circumcised and then just? That's the manner I'm talking about. So you have the manner after the moil or after the oral Torah, and then you have any other means of it. It has to be certified. It has to be done by the moil, by the certified Jewish rabbinic council that says, yes, that's a legitimate circumcision. And I believe that Paul was teaching against the oral Torah. That's what I think. I think he was for it in many cases, but in this case, it really points.
I don't see that at all.
But here's the one.
I see that. Go ahead.
The one verse that I was thinking that really, for me, that made it look like the overview of the New Testament, Paul teaching Torah, was where he had a conflict with Peter. And he came to him, and he says, why is it that when you're with the Gentiles, you act like the Gentiles, but when you're with the Jews, you act like a Jew?
And who's speaking to whom there?
Paul is speaking to Peter. Paul is criticizing Peter for being hypocritical.
Peter is the one who was hypocritical?
Peter was the one who was hypocritical.
Okay.
So again, if you look at all of the verses in the whole entire New Testament that mention anything about law, there's probably maybe 10 or 15 that are really dominantly seem to be anti-Torah, but there's like 50 that go the other way. So if you were to just weigh it out by weights and balances, and you had to choose one or the other based on volume and context, he was definitely a Torah teacher. He screwed up a lot, and he said some stupid things that maybe seem otherwise, but again, if you look at the overall context, he pretty much clarified himself, like in Galatians 5:4. He said, those of you who depend on this for your whatever. So he was being very specific and clarifying himself in areas that were shady, but most of the Christian world never sees those verses in the same light of the verses they claim where he taught against Torah.
I'm sorry, I don't see that at all. Galatians 5, he says that if you get circumcised, Jesus has no effect for you.
No,
it doesn't do anything for you.
Is that 5:4?
And so he's telling people, don't get circumcised.
It says Christ has become no effect to you. It says whoever of you are justified by
the law. In other words, if you accept the law by getting circumcised, Jesus doesn't help you because you still have to keep the law.
Right.
And he's telling people, don't keep the law.
No, he's saying that your justification for keeping the law should not be the benefit thereof. Your benefit is supposed to be Yashke, should be Jesus, Yeshua. That's the messianic viewpoint on that.
Well, that's certainly not what I see in the text. I think that's they're trying to make themselves legitimate Jewishly.
Yeah,
when
right.
the text doesn't validate that text. That doesn't validate that understanding.
That's a great point.
Paul, behold, I, Paul, say to you that if you are circumcised, Christ will benefit you nothing. For I testify against to every man that is circumcised that he must keep the whole law.
Right.
He's trying to tell people, don't become circumcised, go straight to Christianity.
That's why Galatians is the messianic title of the letter that should have never been written. That is the one letter that everybody runs to justify lawlessness.
This to me is the clearest statement of Paul's attitude towards the law. He is antinomian. He is against the law. He thinks that everything should be done by faith.
I wonder,
not to do the law by faith,
right?
But to believe in Jesus by faith. Chronologically,
where does Galatians fit? Do you know? I mean, time-wise on the marker. His writing started showing up around 70 or so. No, 35. I'm sorry, 35, 40.
No. The scholars that I know cite the writings of Paul after about 50, 55.
Okay.
So maybe it took 20 years for them to start thinking, gee, maybe Paul's got something here. But the letters are usually begin like around the year 55. Whatever the earliest letter is, I couldn't tell you.
Do you think Galatians was like on the tail end of his ministry or in the beginning?
It's an interesting question. My guess would be near the end, but
okay.
I don't know.
Maybe
all I know is that I'd like to know in every one of the 50 plus times you say that Paul is relating to the law in a good way.
Right.
I'd like to know who he's talking to.
Right.
Because your description of what Paul said to Peter is exactly how I see Paul, as amoeba-like. He changes his shape depending on the space he's in.
Right.
And so Paul makes him look like he's really, hey, let's do this law business, but in his gut, he doesn't believe it.
Well,
and that's why he gets pulled back to Jerusalem in the first place.
Right. Well, so like Hebrews 10:38, for example.
Second.
In fact, Hebrews 10:28 is a major marker, or 10:26, excuse me. But 10:26 is not the one I want you to look at. But you can look at it. But it literally tells you anybody who continues to sin after being made known the truth, there remains no sacrifice for you. So he's right there. Paul is teaching all the Christian world that not every one of your sins, not all your sins will be forgiven. I mean, some things you're going to have to deal with. But 10:28.
Hebrews 10 what?
10:38.
30. Oh, sorry. Okay.
And then
38. The people God accepts will live because of their faith, but He isn't pleased with anyone who turns back.
Hold on 1 second. I'm looking for the cross reference for that. I've got it right.
All right.
Where'd it go? Oh, here we go. Okay, that was now Habakkuk 2:4 is supposed to be
turns back to what?
Hold on, Habakkuk 2:4, I think. Let me see something here. Oh, I'm in 3:4, that's why I couldn't find it. Okay, what does it say? That verse.
He that despised Moses' law died without mercy under 2 or 3 witnesses. Hebrews 10:28.
The just shall live by faith.
Wait, I didn't see that there.
10:38.
See. 10:38.
Actually, I did say 28, but I had to correct myself. But you might have.
Now the just shall live by faith, but if any man draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him.
Okay, now the just shall live by faith. That sounds like it's teaching against the law. You should only live by faith, right? But in Habakkuk 2:4,
right,
it says, "Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith." He's quoting from Habakkuk. So if he's teaching a new thing, why is he quoting Habakkuk? You know what I'm saying? So if you look at the full context
of all,
of it,
he'll quote anything he wants to.
That's true. That is so true.
In context or out of context.
Right, to make a point.
Proper translation or Septuagint translation, if it supports his argument.
That is sadly so true.
But how you are understanding this is not how I understand this at all.
Most Jewish people do
Okay.
not. In fact, that's one reason why Jews and
that's why I
Messianic
think
Jews
this
disagree so
rationalization,
much.
because they want to justify their position on why they don't keep Jewish law. Why don't Christians keep kosher? Why don't
Right.
Christians keep the seventh day as the Sabbath? I'm not talking about Seventh-day
Yeah.
Adventists.
Right, right.
By and large, the vast majority of Christians don't keep a Sabbath, and they don't keep it on Saturday anyway.
Right,
They can go to church in the morning on their Sunday, in the afternoon they don't care what they do.
right.
Okay, why? Because Paul was against the law. That Paul was saying you don't need the law, you have to have faith in Jesus, that's it. And to me, when he says, what was your number, 38?
Yes.
Okay, the people God accepts will live because of their faith, but he isn't pleased with anyone who turns back. To me, what he's saying is the people that God accepts are those who have faith in Jesus, but he isn't pleased if they turn back to the law.
Right.
So your Messianics are seeing this radically different than I do. Oh, that must be the veil over my mind.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, yeah, and here's another one in 1 Timothy, chapter 5, verse 20. Them that sin, rebuke them publicly before everybody, that others may also fear. And that is also out of the Tanakh, is to rebuke them openly. You shall not hate. Well, actually, it's not the one I'm thinking of. It's a different one. I'll tell you which one it is. Hang on. But just to show you another cross references. Yeah, it is. It actually is the one. Leviticus 19:17. You shall not hate your brother in your heart, but you shall surely rebuke him, and not suffer his soul to death, or whatever that's called. Okay.
Right, but where does that say it's done in public?
Oh yeah.
That's a horrible thing to do, to rebuke somebody in public in Jewish law.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. He's reaching for sure. So, but there's so far, I think there's probably at least a dozen sightings in here where there is a really close match in the Tanakh of similar phrases, like we've already discussed.
But the way in which those similar phrases are used,
yeah,
I don't see as in consonance with what Judaism believes.
Right.
I think Paul is looking at it radically differently than the way Messianics portray it. I think they're justifying, they still want to be a Christian, they still want to make themselves feel like they're still Jewish, or make themselves feel like they are Jewish,
right?
By playing dress up.
Yep, very true.
Okay, Halloween. Hey, look, I'm going to be Superman. Well, I'm going to put on the tzitzit and the payas and the beard, and look, I'm also Jewish. I think they are rationalizing their doing Judaism by reworking the Pauline statements.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I think you're right. But
that's just me.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, because the more I study these more and more, and I start to see the comparisons, it's very clear that he's either misquoting them like he did, like a lot of the New Testament stuff, especially Matthew. My gosh, misquoting and twisting, the Hebrew text to make their own points. So it's pretty nasty. Well, I'll tell you what, Rabbi, we did not have enough time to continue.
No, but I told you I am learning from you.
Hey, and we're all learning from each other, and hopefully we're learning the most from you, Rabbi. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow around 2 o'clock for
around 2 o'clock, absolutely.
Looking forward to it. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. We will see y'all soon. Be sure to check out one of Rabbi's websites. I'm going to put him up full screen real fast so you can write this down, whatjewsbelieve.org, if I could find my mouse, which is here. And, well, that was part of it. Hold on.
And next week we'll start with Joe Buchanan's music.
Oh, yeah. So we're definitely working on that. I've got to work on the syncing issues, so there you go. Okay, well, shalom, everybody. It's been a great episode. Rabbi, I'll see you tomorrow. And ladies and gentlemen, all you fans of Federow, we'll see you all 1 week from tonight, same time, same place. Shalom, shalom, Shavua Tov.
שותפים, חשוב תמיד להיות אנושי.